Well, welcome. This is a co-hosted event with Massachusetts Climate Action Network, MCAN, and Boston Society for Architecture. We will be recording this event, so if you don't wish to have your face visible, you can go off video, and that will solve that conundrum. We will be sending out a link to this recording and a follow-up email, as well as a post-event survey, so be on the lookout for that. As I've mentioned, this is a co-sponsored event. MCAN and BSA, we are offering a 4-part series on affordable housing is a climate solution. I'm Sarah Dooling, I'm the executive director at MCAN. MCAN, for those of you who don't know, is a nonprofit organization that works with advocates pushing for clean energy, renewable energy programs and policies at the local level. We also coordinate over 60 chapter advocates and convene them to push the Commonwealth and be active at the state level and making sure the Commonwealth becomes a climate leader. This series is especially important because the pandemic has revealed to me and to so many that there are these overlapping crises in housing, in health, and in climate change. And we really see this webinar, which came out of a series of conversations we started having back in the summer about how MCAN and BSA can build a really diverse coalition of designers, civil engineers, grassroots advocates, and others that can center affordable housing as a climate solution. And this is why we have interspersed our 4-part webinar series with 2 social networking sessions in between. Because solving these overlapping crises of housing, health, and climate requires many kinds of different professions, many kinds of advocates to build this cross-sector coalition built on shared values and shared visions for a just transition that in many ways is really dependent on making sure our housing options for everybody are safe, predictable, and healthy. So with that, I would like to turn the microphone over to my co-host, Jen Efron of the BSA, to introduce herself and BSA.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you all. And let's see if we can, I will see if I can take that remote control. Okay, great. Thank you, and welcome. And I just wanted to, Sarah, were you done with those? Okay, welcome from the Boston Society for Architecture. This is just a little background on the BSA. We are both in the local AIA chapter and the 2nd largest in the nation, and we are also a 501c3 foundation. We offer youth education, collaborative community design, and advocacy opportunities throughout Greater Boston. We have a few core focus areas, one being climate. And through our climate work, most recently, we are partnering with the Green Ribbon Commission to collect case studies of zero energy retrofits for large scale buildings. And so this audience, I thought I'd take a moment to plug that. If you have case studies, we're accepting them through January and looking that's helping to guide the city's energy retrofit planning and zero carbon emission standards. In addition to that, we've been working on embodied carbon issues as well. We had a boutique conference last year, and the climate action work also includes that of CLF Boston, the local hub of the Carbon Leadership Forum. Most recently, the group's work involved an Embodied Carbon 101 series, which was a 12-part primer on literacy and strategies for reducing embodied carbon. And more resources and programming will be coming forward on that in 2021. Housing is also one of the core focuses at the BSA. We are proud to be working with Boston's Housing Innovation Lab to co-host a 2-year housing fellowship, which is led by my fantastic colleague, Wandi Pasquale. And her work focuses on middle scale housing and infill development. And we are trying to reimagine the triple decker, or as we like to call it, the future decker. We right now have a virtual exhibition up, past, present, and future decor that you can see online on our website. And it includes programming. Notably, on December 2nd, we will have one on energy retrofits for small scale buildings that this group might be interested in as well. So I think we're really excited, particularly for this series, because it combines both housing and climate, and then of course brings up equity issues, which are obviously so key in interlacing all of these issues. And so we're excited to see what comes from these conversations and to work together to put a platform together that combines design and advocacy and community. So thank you. And with that, I will pass over for our first presenter, Emily Jones from LISC.
Great. Before we pass the mic to Emily, I would just like to introduce our speaker. So Emily Jones serves as the Senior Program Officer at Local Initiatives Support Coalition, otherwise known as LISC, in the Boston's Green Retrofit Initiative, as well as being LISC Boston's Interim Program Officer for Economic Opportunity. And Emily comes to our session today with a long experience convening experts to provide relevant trainings to support owners and property managers and to really drive progressive policy that creates clean, efficient, equitable energy options for folks in Massachusetts' affordable housing sector. So with that, Emily, I give you the floor.
Thank you, Sarah and Jenny and Wandy and all. It's great to be here and alongside my great panelists. So again, I'm Emily Jones with the Local Initiative Support Corporation, or LISC. It's LISC, you may not have heard of it. We're one of the country's largest community development organizations. And we really invest, with grants, technical assistance, and loans in affordable housing and economic opportunity locally, working with local partners such as Corey and Jane to drive transformative change, and obviously MCAN and BSA and others. Next slide, please.
Jenny, I believe you need to give me remote access again.
And I guess you can go one more, thanks. Awesome. So many of you may know, affordable housing. You may be quite familiar with it. Just to give a quick overview, there's many types and definitions of affordable housing. So our Green Retrofit Initiative, we've primarily focused on multifamily affordable housing that's produced and preserved with the support of state and local subsidies, including our low-income housing tax credit program, or the LIHTC program. You'll also often hear that called. So generally speaking, we define affordable housing as serving households earning at or less than 80% of area median income without having to pay more than 30% of their income for housing costs. So the need for affordable housing is desperate, as many know. And if you live in Massachusetts in the greater Boston region, you know that almost a quarter of renter households are extremely cost burdened, which means they're paying over half their income to cover housing costs. So when folks talk about naturally occurring affordable housing, they're often talking about rents or mortgages that just happen to be below market price. But as our housing costs continue to increase more rapidly than income, those types of affordable housing will become more scarce. So that's why LISC and other partners were so committed to making sure that subsidized affordable housing units, which have long-term affordability restrictions, where you as a resident don't have to pay more than 30% of your income on housing costs, is produced and preserved. And some of the partners that we work with, such as the community development corporations, or CDCs. These are not the CDC, the health CDC, but mission-based organizations with social and environmental justice traditions. They've been key drivers of affordable housing production and preservation throughout Massachusetts since the 70s. So next slide, please. And I'll say the bottom line, as I said, is that affordable housing should be affordable to all. So we see affordable housing as a climate action strategy. So this image, I know it's small, but it's actually part of MAPC's playbook on climate solutions. So MAPC, as many of you may know, is the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, or MAPC. They're our regional planning agency, and they serve 101 cities and towns in metropolitan Boston to help them envision and create more sustainable, livable, connected communities. So they've developed this municipal net zero playbook that helps guide and equip cities and towns with resources and tools to help them tackle climate goals in an efficient and an equitable manner. So a key component of the playbook is supporting the development and preservation of highly efficient, affordable housing to help the Commonwealth achieve our complementary goals of reducing carbon pollution while ensuring our communities are truly affordable to everyone. So you can check that out at the mapc.org website, and we can share that as well afterwards. Next slide, please. So, we kind of bucket affordable housing and what needs to happen into these two buckets of creating and preserving affordable housing. So new construction and rehabs or retrofits. So the first key here is we have to create more affordable housing, more units, and we need them to be highly efficient. So when we say highly efficient, we mean above what our base code is, or the stretch code even. We really recommend that owners that we work with consider building to higher performance standards, such as LEED or Enterprise Green Communities is a criteria that's essentially LEED for affordable housing, and then Passive House, which is a high performance building energy standard. So all of those help us get to our climate goals, and LISC and in concert with MCAN and many other partners have really tried to drive financing of programs to support more of this creation of high performance affordable housing. So as you can see, we think we always have owners ask them to maximize all of these great programs that we have in Massachusetts. We're fortunate to be #1 in energy efficiency programs in the nation. And specifically, I want to stress this Passive House incentives that recently, through the Mass Save program, LISC, MCAN, many other partners have successfully advocated for Passive House incentives to help bridge that incremental cost of getting from whatever the current code is to Passive House for new construction. We also have worked with the Department of Housing and Community Development that runs our low-income housing tax credit program to provide a competitive advantage for projects that commit to building to a Passive House standard. We also think it's key. So as if folks are homeowners and have like a mortgage, this is equivalent as a permanent loan that affordable housing has. And MHP, one of our 2 state housing finance agencies, is now providing preferential financing to owners borrowers who commit to building or retrofitting to higher performance standards. So that's MHP's green and healthy housing programs that we encourage owners to take advantage of. Last but not least, it's really critical to monitor the building performance and commission those building systems on an ongoing basis, as well as to train staff, maintenance on-site staff, to make sure that staff are comfortable and really know how to operate and optimize these systems, the technologies long-term. Next slide, please. So on the preservation of existing affordable housing, this is just as key. Our sector started to really recognize the environmental impact that existing buildings could have, and we started to increasingly focus on this rehab or retrofit work. That being said, there's a lot of diverse building types, ages. You know, there's the triple deckers or the future deckers. I love that. And big, really large affordable housing developments. So it's hard to know where to begin. We always encourage owners to do online benchmarking. And benchmarking is monitoring your energy and water use. And so that is a way that our sector was able to start measuring and comparing buildings' performances so that they knew where they could focus their energy and apply the energy efficiency and appropriate clean energy technology programs. So LISC was, our Green Homes program was actually started about a decade ago to help owners take full advantage of the LEAN program. And that's Mass Save's program that's specific to affordable housing, to low-income housing, what they call. And so we really want to make sure that people maximize that program regardless of where they are in the financing cycle. And then as they're approaching a major rehab, which in affordable housing typically occurs on 15-year refinancing cycles, that's when we really encourage owners to receive a comprehensive or ASHRAE level 2 investment grade energy audit and to engage in a design planning meeting or a charrette for the architects on the call to really get all the stakeholders to the table to understand what the recommended energy savings and clean energy technology measures are, and talk about how they can incorporate that into the rehab scope of work. So again, we suggest that folks certify and get preferential financing and then commission those systems and train staff so that they know how to operate these buildings on a long-term basis. Next slide, please. So the next, the question is, what is coming down the pike? And there's a lot. Increasingly, we're starting to shift toward a more of a carbon or climate reduction focus. Traditionally, a lot of the programs, the energy efficiency Mass Save program has been a cost benefit to determine whether your property is eligible for certain measures. And so we really need to change that conversation to think about what our carbon goals are and how we're going to drill down and achieve those for both new construction and existing buildings. We have more aggressive state and local action. Many of you may be involved in some of the local gas bans, as well as some of these, the zoning requirements, or what we're trying to go to stretch code or the net zero stretch code that MCAN can speak to. And then we're moving towards strategic building electrification. So as many of you may know, to hit our carbon 2050 climate goals, we really need to go all electric with almost all of our systems, and then drive those how we're producing electricity to renewable energy sources. And so we're trying to help thread the needle with affordable housing to make sure that's being done in an equitable and affordable manner, and to ensure that it's not cost prohibitive for affordable housing. And then health is going to be becoming increasingly an important focus in our sector. We know that climate change disproportionately impacts the partners, the communities that we work with. And so we really need to make sure that there's a strong focus on resident protection in terms of health, in terms of money. And then finally, I'll say we need more investment, right? Who can we bring to the table to really help us get there? Obviously, health there is a question. Can healthcare, given the health benefits of passive house and climate ready buildings, safe, high quality homes for everybody, that is really has social determinants of health benefit. And so how can we make sure that healthcare is at the table with us? And then additional, obviously, as I mentioned before, going deeper with some of our states, the utility programs, and then some of the states' housing and energy funding that they have available, as well as potential federal dollars that may come down the line. So just a few takeaways. Next slide, please. So again, creation of high performance affordable housing, it may require some incremental costs, but we think we know the paybacks pay off, and the costs will go down over time. And I know Jane and both of our panelists will talk about that. And so preservation, I think that the key in preservation is the taking advantage of that magical moment of rehab and refinance. We know it is more expensive, but we need to have financing come into play and additional investment at that moment. Operation is key. Again, we can do the best job with putting in a system, and then if it's not actually maintained over time, that can quickly degrade the energy performance of that system. Finally, we need your leadership. We need affordable housing sector partners leadership. We need your support of the affordable housing community to build more, to preserve more units. And with that, I'll go to the next slide. This is just a, where does your community compare for listing on subsidized housing? It's if it's under 10%, even if it's over 10%, we need more affordable housing and high performance affordable housing. So next slide, please. So just a few things that that interested parties can do. We just really encourage you to support housing that's affordable for everyone in your community. There's some really important legislation that's being filed, including the Housing Choice Bill. Community preservation acts are always important if your community doesn't yet have the CPA. You can go to thegreatneighborhoods.org. It's a fantastic website for some housing policy, affordable housing friendly policy that really gets to both affordable housing and climate friendly solutions. That same thing with the HERO campaign. You can go there to learn more about some of the resiliency and sustainability investments that these two affordable housing and climate groups are working on. And then just meet your local affordable housers. Who's in your community and how are they doing this work? Jane and Corey are two examples of that. So meet the people who are making this and support them. And finally, if you are an architect, we encourage you to get your passive house design consultancy, to encourage enterprise green community criteria and LEED certification and passive house with your clients. So with that, I think I'm done. Thank you, and please reach out with any questions.
Great. Thank you, Emily. That was wonderful. And in the interest of time, we are going to hold questions until the end. So as you all have been doing, please drop the questions into the chat. I'm extracting them, and the goal is to have about 10 minutes for questions at the end. Our next speaker is Jane Carbone from Homeowners Rehab. She's their Director of Development, has over 30 years of experience in producing affordable housing units at HRI. She's grown their portfolio to about over 1,400 units, and she's really responsible for overseeing a lot of their work from all aspects of the development process, including pre-development through construction. And it is really because of her leadership that HRI incorporates sustainable and environmental friendly building practices into all of their new developments. And so Jane will be presenting on 3 different projects for us today. And with that, Jane, I will yield the floor to you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. And thanks everyone here, Jenny as well, and other members of the panel. As Sarah said, I work at HRI, and we are a nonprofit housing developer located in Cambridge, and we have about 1,400 units of housing and about 60,000 square feet of commercial space. The predominantly our housing is all rental housing. They range from 3-family triple-decker buildings to 300-unit housing development that we're currently working on. So it's a very different mix of portfolio, different housing stock. And so every building has different design elements that we're trying to incorporate energy conservation measures on. Next slide. And we started in the 90s, you know, Energy Star was predominantly a focus at the federal level. And then there was, and we were involved in incorporating Energy Star rating. And then we wanted to further develop that into more high efficiency, measures in our developments. And then at the same time, the lean program was starting to develop the energy, the state's energy program was being created, and I was on the lean advisory committee. And so we were trying to target, you know, what is needed in these multifamily housing properties to really make them more energy efficient. So the lean program was created as a resource for multifamily owners to do cost-effective improvements through the utility companies. And we were able to take advantage of that, those programs. And then as we advanced a lot of our existing portfolio into energy retrofits, we realized that, you know, we had to do a little bit more, not just provide comfortable housing for our residents, but also incorporate health and wellness strategies into our developments as well. And so we tried to create that over the next few years in a lot of new construction projects, with also a focus on doing retrofits as well. And the current state at HRI's portfolio is, you know, we've embraced LEED, we've embraced Passive House. We are working with Enterprise Green Communities in their goals, because those really focus on not just the building envelope, but who is living in the buildings and how to impact their health and wellness. So, and we have many partners, and I think Massachusetts is very rich in partners. And as Emily said, you know, LISC and Enterprise Green Communities and Mass CEC, those are major players. DHCD helps us through the tax credit program. So I think the affordable housing benefits from all of these programs, because it's very challenging to build and develop and create affordable housing. Costs are the same. Sometimes soft costs are even higher because of all the regulatory requirements that we have to meet. So we really need to have funding to help us move through the process. Next slide. And I think what we also are trying to address, you know, climate change is a big issue, and affordable housing definitely has to be a player, because we're seeing changes in the atmosphere. Obviously, by 2030, the number of days above 90 degrees could triple. And so the city of Cambridge is very focused on their carbon emissions plan for their reduction. They started the net 5 years ago. There was a net zero action plan that was started, and now they're re-establishing that net zero task force to go through, you know, what happened in the last 5 years, and are we on the trajectory to meet our carbon emissions? And they're finding that they're not quite there yet, so they have to be a little bit more aggressive. So the task force is starting again, seeing like what changes do we have to make. I think the residential component in Cambridge is a lot smaller than the commercial and the lab buildings, but again, all of them together have to make an effort to combat carbon reduction and combat climate change. So we're trying to focus on our buildings, you know, with the residents living there, and all these climate issues with heating degree days increasing and storm impacts being, you know, a 100-year storm is occurring every 30 years. So we have to, you know, design for that. Next slide. So this is a development. It was a 6-unit building. And so, you know, you can see it's right on the lot line, and we wanted to do, it was vacant. So we gutted it out, and we wanted to do as close to net zero as we could. And this was in 2009. So we put exterior cladding, rigid insulation on the outside. We couldn't add an additional wall to create a larger cavity on the interior, because, you know, we're limited by the square footage of the apartments. They're very small, and so we couldn't add another double stud wall. So we put the cladding on the exterior, but we're coming against zoning issues where we had setback requirements, and you can see that we're right on the lot line, and so we couldn't meet the we couldn't include additional insulation because of the setback requirements. So in 2009, you know, we brought it up to the city that there are some, if we're really trying to make energy efficiency and building envelope really tight, we're going to need some relief on, as of right, you know, what owners can do to make improvements in their property. And so on the next project, so here, you know, we put in solar thermal, solar PV, R40 in the roof, and R19 in the walls. So we got you know, we got it down to as low as we could based on the way the footprint was designed. Next slide. And this is another development. There's another, I think this is 8 units, and it was a historic renovation. But again, we wanted to see like how close can we achieve net zero. So here we again did 2 inches of rigid on the outside with the rain screen, insulated the cavity wall with mineral cellulose insulation, and then did our 50 on the roof. But the city had changed the policy so that if you were going to do exterior envelope improvements, that you could add additional insulation on the exterior, make the cladding improvements, and have it as of right versus going to get a variance to do the exterior. Next slide. And so also, so as we do renovations, we try to do as much improvements as possible. You know, we try to do an energy audit. We always do an energy audit. We try to do a level 1 energy audit in our rehabs, and then always try to target the low hanging fruit and what utility programs and other resources are available that we can use and apply towards the development. So the goal is always energy efficiency, sustainability, thermal comfort for our residents. And this was we had a site, we purchased, we have a ground lease with MIT at Auburn Court. It's 150 units, and there was a small little area on the site that was a small green space, and we decided to take that parcel over and create, still have some green space on the development, but build a new construction property there. So when we were doing a large capital plan at the existing portfolio, we then built 8 units, and this is all electric. Again, it achieved LEED Platinum, and we incorporated active design guidelines into this development through the Center for Active Design. And you can see the stairwells, you know, there's a lot of light. We try to make them attractive instead of, you know, undecorated corridors that people access. We're trying to encourage people to use the stairs more and make that space pleasant. And here we're seeing that we're always tracking our developments through WegoWise. So water, electricity, and gas are tracked. So we know if there's a spike, or we know if there's a design that doesn't meet its expectations, we can, you know, go back and figure out what the problem was. And we're seeing here with all electric a 50% savings in heat. And again, all our portfolio, we track carbon emissions reductions. Next slide. And so WegoWise is showing the graph shows a standard, the larger green lines are showing a standard building, a multifamily property, and then you can see the blue line is 3 Brookline Place. So we're certainly outperforming the Energy Star buildings, and you know, what we're seeing is that the improvements that we're doing are definitely making a difference in terms of operating costs and carbon emission reduction. Next slide. And this is Finch. We recently occupied this in July, this past summer. It's 98 units, the first new affordable housing construction development in Cambridge in 40 years. And we were originally intended to, you know, we were under the stretch code. We're working with a very, you know, progressive architect, Icon Architect, that is really focused on sustainability, and they met the goals that we've been trying to achieve for many years, and we've partnered with them as well for quite a while. So So we called it more or less stealth passive house, where the stretch code was a pretty high standard in Cambridge, and we're achieving that. And then we were going a little bit beyond that. So there was an opportunity when we were actually in construction. Mass CEC had a grant available to incentivize people or developments to be passive house certified. So we had a few change orders initially to get the certification. We didn't have our HVAC system. Under passive house, you have to have for every unit, for every room in every unit, you had to have individual ventilation. So that was a change order. But in the end, we looked at our costs, and because we were so close to the stretch code, it was about 1.5% cost initially. And I think, next slide. And I think the impacts are, we're keeping that development on track. We're tracking all of our usage. Next slide. I just want to go through. So these are some of the things that we did. Podium structure. So, and then these are resilient strategies. No living space at grade. We have a community room you can shelter in place. We have a sewage tank that's collecting, a retention tank that's collecting sewer and storm water on the site. Next slide. And we have a robust cladding system as passive house requires, and compartmentalization. Next slide. So these are the modeling, and we're well below our demand for cooling and heating. And we also, if there's an issue with a flood or heating, residents can actually stay in their unit for up to 3 days without temperature differential, either for cooling or on the heating side. So if there's an event, a climate event, residents can stay in the property without discomfort. Next slide. Next slide. So everybody knows the benefits of passive house. Next slide. That's this is the lobby of Finch, and you can see active design principles here. Encouraging the staircase versus the elevator, which is tucked in the back, just a wide open space. Next slide. And the community room, we have these quiet study rooms that weren't designed, were added later, but for COVID has been a really great opportunity for folks or children even to work in school at home. Next slide. And this is the patio. And so we have a robust resident services program there. And again, incorporating health and wellness and getting the residents very involved in living in a passive house and what does it mean, and how they have an impact on the development and living in there and their usage as well. So we're continually educating them through our program. Next slide. And these are our 100,000 kilowatt solar PV panel, PV panels that are installed on the roof. Next slide. And that's the exterior. Next slide. And it's on Concord Ave in Cambridge. And our most recent project now, working on an occupied rehab, 300 units. And again, we started with the basics, ASHRAE level audit 1, looking at, what are the improvements that we have to do? What's the low hanging fruit? And so over time, over the years, we've done electrical upgrades, high efficiency lighting, and insulation and improvements. And now we're doing new windows and a whole exterior cladding. So there'll be quite a transformation. This building is located on Memorial Drive on River Street. And over the next 2 years, you'll see quite a transformation of this development. I think we're looking at an R29 for the walls. But again, we weren't able to do a passive house here, but I think the goal is to do as much as possible. Thanks. Next slide. Thank you so much. And I hope I didn't go too fast.
Great. Thank you, Jane. That was really interesting. And just to remind folks, drop your questions into the chat and we will pick them up at the end. Our next speaker, we've saved, we're going to put Corey up here at the last to give us the big vision. Where do we need to go next? And Corey Thompson is the principal and founder of Mobius LLC and Mobius Community Builders LLC. He's worked in commercial real estate, architectural design, and construction for over 25 years as director of operations and managers for, as a manager for both residential and light commercial projects from start to finish. He recently moved back to Boston from the DC area, and he's been connecting with local leaders and experts on issues of workforce development and trades training. And he's going to close us out by offering a vision of where we can go to scale up from the building to generating community benefits. So with that, Corey, I pass the microphone to you.
Well, thank you, Sarah, and I'm pleased to be here and part of this exciting webinar, because the convergence of affordable housing, climate change, and a little part of it is workforce development as well. Compiling all of the different challenges that face communities in urban cities that I've lived in and visited throughout the years that I've been involved with climate change, and starting off with even as far back with workforce development in relationship to Green for All and the programs that had and that transformed into today. So what we have is an essential village in Dorchester. It's the neighborhood I grew up in, and I like to call it an essential village because I see that, especially in light of COVID-19 and the climate that we're in now, having affordable housing and addressing climate change while keeping the neighborhood and the communities that are most impacted by that in mind, it just drives home to me. And that's why I feel very honored to be able to present some of the findings that I've had. Next slide. One of the biggest challenges in our community is defining equity and equality and what it really means. How do we design for equity while keeping in mind the challenges communities face? Like I said before earlier, I'm finding that a lot of the communities that are hardest hit are communities with essential workers and brown and Black folks. So how do we keep that in mind and work forward into the future? Next slide. Through creating and keeping the workforce diverse. You know, we have a workplace of management, engagement, staff engagement, compliance, supplier diversity, and collaborative leaderships. These are all different places and aspects of the building industry that, if done well, can incorporate all of the different aspects of climate change and affordable housing that you've heard earlier on in the presentation. Next slide. So let's jump to the really low-hanging fruit. Some of the things that you may already know about are how airflow and cooling air systems happen in buildings. These are things that we can address through workforce development with jobs that are already here in place, and creating communities with a better and healthier solution to some of the home's issues, and keeping climate in mind while developing these programs with existing low-hanging fruit types of technology, winterizing and things of that nature. Next slide. Like air sealing, insulation, and keeping that energy within. These are the boots on the ground types of jobs that can be created through retrofitting existing home stock and trying to get that as close as possible to passive house conditions, and also LEED, gold, or platinum in relationships to transit-oriented developments in communities like in Dorchester, Roxbury, and Mattapan. Next slide. So creating value through community workforce development. It's something that climate solutions can have great impact on. And this project we have here is in Dorchester. It's the buildings that you see on the left are passive house ground up solutions. While we're creating these work solutions for passive houses needs, it's also opportunities to build with local institutions like BFIT and RCC, and they have programs that allow you to build experience through while building solutions for passive house design. The building on the right will also will be occupied by possibly a solution to workforce development training within the building itself through programs at BFIT. And they're looking to launch this program in January of next year, and that programming will be housed within the community. And we're excited to see what can come of the collaboration between workforce development, climate change, and institutions like BFIT that are willing to produce the next workforce in a climate solution that with a climate solution at its core element. Next slide. And as you can see, I'm keeping it very brief and very short, trying to keep us all back in track. What I see, and since I've been back to Boston, is the ability to bring multiple agencies like MCAN, like BSA, like LISC, and other agencies from the city as well that have operated in the past in silos. And now it's time for us to come together as a community, as a society, and lovers of the environment and the places that we live. So I'm keeping this extremely brief because I want to hear from all of you that are out there and getting great ideas of how we can bring forward the future of climate change and resiliency through working together. And as you say, 1 + 1 can equal 4 if we do it all together. Thank you.
That's great, Corey. That's right. 1 + 1 does equal 4. So it's so true. So I am going to transition us from our presentations and our presenters to going through some of the questions that all of you have dropped in chat. And I'll go in the order that they were received. And so one of the first questions we received reads, given the high administrative costs of LEED and/or passive house certification, in LISC's projects, have you designed to these standards without actually pursuing the official certification? That is the question for you, Emily.
So just to clarify, we don't personally create projects, but our partners like HRI, for instance, have. I'll just say that yes, there is a fee to certification, and some people do pursue what they call stealth passive house. I think Jane spoke to that, and but I think in the end, Jane, did you go with certification verified?
Yeah, we did a project probably 12 years ago in Cambridge, Trolley Square, and we didn't want to go through the certification. But we said, okay, we're going to be LEED certifiable. What I found happened during that construction project was that it was difficult to manage because the contractor, it wasn't a requirement. So we had difficulty, they would try to give us substitutions. They wouldn't always meet the shop drawings. There were always some changes. So I think if you have, the LEED certified, then you really have that mandate that you have to achieve those goals. And the same with Passive House, I think Passive House, we were going stealth, but we did get the money through the Mass CEC to help us pay for some of those costs. And I think that has been helpful. And I think the biggest thing, there are incremental costs, but I think in the end you get a better product because you have a way to regulate it. And the other thing is there are resources that can help assist. The one thing I would say that in the most important thing in any of these projects to do, and it's worth spending the money, is to do the commissioning, because that could be a driver to either missing something that wasn't designed properly or just missing something that wasn't operated properly. So we always do commissioning and pay for that. And, prior, pre, during construction, and then post-construction.
Great. Thank you, Jane and Emily. Some of what all of you touched on included retrofitting of affordable units. And so this has been a question that I know many folks have addressed in terms of what strategies are there to overcome what is called the split incentive of retrofitting for really small multifamily, specifically triple deckers for landlords and renters. So who pays for what? Are there any renter protections put in place? And maybe, so I pose this question to all of our presenters in terms of how have you addressed the split incentive problem in your work?
So I can just say that we haven't, frankly, we have worked with owners who they have long-term affordability restrictions on their properties. So they are mission aligned. So there isn't technically a split incentive, or the owners want to help residents save money in addition to themselves. But yes, this is a huge issue for naturally occurring affordable housing, especially when an owner does not live in the building, so has less incentive to update it to help save the residents money. Certain folks like the Mass Clean Energy Center is engaging in the triple decker challenge, and that design, professionals such as yourselves and others are developing innovative solutions to how you create a retrofit, a deep energy retrofit for those buildings. I think the jury's still out on some of the mission aligning of those strategies, but that's why we need to have more affordability restrictions for units so that there is mission alignment.
Just to add to that also is Mass DEC is trying to work with utilities because, it's illegal in Massachusetts now to sub-meter. And we have been trying to do that in some of our developments. But again, it has not been successful. So there has to be some legislative change, and Eversource has to be brought into the mix. And I think Mass CEC is trying to work with them, but it's a slow evolving, gruesome regulatory process, unfortunately.
Yes. Okay. Another question that came in asks, there are so many sustainable building rating systems, and which sustainable building rating system do you recommend, and how is the added cost of certification justified instead of building to the same standards without paying for certification? And I know, Jane, you touched on that earlier.
So we use Enterprise Green Communities is a great standard for affordable housing. I mean, LEED, we started with LEED, but LEED or at the time it was more commercial. And so we found that, you were putting a round hole in a square box, so it didn't quite fit multifamily. And Enterprise Green Communities does have, it is specifically geared towards multifamily housing. And then it also has programs, requirements related to residents and health and wellness. So that's really, that's always what we seek. And when we were developing and going through the planning process with Finch, the 98 unit new construction project, the city required under their zoning green LEED. And so we went and asked for a zoning relief so that we could meet enterprise green communities. So now I think they're looking at changing that policy, and some of this, has to happen across the board in cities, but they're changing that policy so that a different standard for housing is met, because LEED is more commercially, is more commercial. And when you look at the total development costs, the soft costs related to this is not as significant. And often you can find resources to help pay for it. So we just feel like the long-term operations, we're in it for the long haul. We're not going to flip the development. We're going to operate it. We're going to meet monthly with our property manager. We're going to look at, our savings and how residents are doing and how the building is performing. So, we feel that it's important to have that initial certification. It's a snapshot in time, but we have to operate it for a longer period, and we feel that that's worth it.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you, Jane. It is now 1 o'clock. And before we all disperse and go about our busy days, more Zoom, back-to-back Zoom, I'm sure, that I just wanted, on behalf of BSA and MCAN, to really thank our 3 speakers. It's been a really fascinating overview of the opportunities and the challenges and the big picture ahead. We're coming together as many different kinds of people on this call, trying to really build a coalition and a movement to center affordable housing and to center work, funding, policies that support more incentives for deep energy retrofits. And along those veins, before we go, I have dropped into the chat, building off of Emily's presentation in terms of next steps. These are some additional next steps that folks on this call can also take. Offer written testimony to support passive house affordable housing retrofits. Right now, the Energy Efficiency Advisory Council is meeting, and they're holding listening sessions where they will listen to your, they'll read your written and they'll listen to your spoken testimony. And so you can reach out to myself or Rebecca. Our emails are in the chat if you would like some sample language. And then also building off of Corey's vision for, zero emitting communities, right? Inclusive communities. One of the proposals that Corey and others are working on to submit to the EEAC includes additional or expanding funding for workforce development tied to passive house standards and the trades associated with that. So reach out again to me and Rebecca, and we can plug you into that process. Also, just as a reminder, we will be sending out the link to this recording in a follow-up email with a post-event survey. So stay tuned for that. Our future webinars include actually the Network for Change session. This is where we come together. We're going to do some somewhat lighthearted networking fun things. That's December 4 at 3 p.m. And so look for an invitation to that. Our second webinar will be December 14th from noon to 1. And our third webinar is going to be either on January 25th or February 2nd. So just please look out for those invitations. And I just
be sure to send it in follow-up emails. Yeah, we'll put all that info.
Yes. So I just wanted to thank everybody for attending this event. As the pandemic has revealed, we have overlapping crises, and it requires different groups of people coming together to build a broader coalition to focus on legislative advocacy, regulatory advocacy, and design. right? The power of design is massive and plays a clear role in ensuring everybody has a clean, healthy, safe place to live. So with that, thank you for coming, and take good care. Jenny, do you have any closing comments?
Wanted again to reiterate, thank you all for joining us, and thank you to our fantastic panelists for bringing it all together. The connection between community and climate and affordable housing is so important, and I look forward to continuing these conversations in our next series with everyone. So thank you.
And can I ask everyone
Thank
to do one thing? Think global while acting local. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.